was a big proponent on my show all the time, talking about mental health awareness, and got to really interact with a lot of great celebrities and athletes talking about this very issue. And especially for men, it's so important for men, Billy, to understand that, mental health awareness and stuff is the thing. Men just don't do it. Women are a lot better at, looking at themselves and trying to get help. Men, for them, it's helpful to them to hear other dudes come out and go, "Hey, I go to therapy." It really, they go, "Oh, okay, so it's not a baby. I'm not a pussy. It's not a negative stereotype." And my first therapist was a military PTSD specialist, and then he broke away and started his own practice. But he worked for the military for years, and he was so tremendously helpful to me. He was amazing, and hard to believe, but maybe radio and the entertainment business actually, gives a lot of PTSD to people.
I can't imagine that. Come on. All right, BJ, I'll take you off the screen, and then I'll bring you on, and we'll do the.
Sounds good, man.
I have my hairy leg intro, so hang on.
Okay, there we go.
To remove me, I meant to remove you. There we go. All right.
When your old career gives you lemons, throw in some ice, mix in some vodka, and call it a podcast. From the Mac of All Trades studio in Fairport, and driven by Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, it's Billified, the Bill Moran Podcast.
Well, hello and welcome. Thanks for getting your pod on. Thank you for telling a friend. That's how we spread the word about the pirate ship. A lot of local radio talk lately on the podcast here and there, and I did want to continue in a little bit, but even talk further about radio, and I couldn't think of anybody better than BJ Shea, because BJ was part of Brother Wease's world twice, and then went off to Seattle and just exploded and just built an empire out there, and is currently living his best life. Is that the right way to say it? I don't know.
What? I love that. I think that's what the kids are saying. Living my best life.
Living my best life.
Yeah, I was. I tell everybody that I was kicked into retirement, kicked into my dreams, because I didn't want to leave radio when it happened. And I don't know if I completely left radio, but it's been almost a year since I've had a job. And, Billy, what I found is not a lot of call for a 65-year-old cisgendered heterosexual Caucasian broadcaster. For some reason, nobody's really banging down the door to get more old white guys to give their opinions. I don't understand it. I feel like the country just doesn't have enough old white guy opinions.
I know. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. The old white guy opinion was very popular. We had a run, Beach.
Yeah, we had a run, man. And of course, just like my life, my entire career has been, you know what? You're almost ready. Oh, wait, now you are, but we're moving on.
Yeah. That's very funny. But so Wease, I'm going to say, I think to the audience, abruptly retired. And I said, on my episode yesterday, that these decisions in a company, and it's iHeart that he was working for, I said there's so many layers there that any decision that seems to have come abruptly has not. It was 4 or 5 months in the making. And from what I understood from some insiders that still connect with me, because the great thing is there's somebody in Seattle that will talk to me once in a while, because I was on their national rock platform. So I did like 80 stations for them, and I'd have to be in all these meetings and stuff. And I think it was the KISW Steve.
Well, anyway, Steve Miggs, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve's a great guy.
No. Yeah. Not Steve Miggs. That's your guy. That was your old. No. This was somebody way up in iHeart, so maybe it was where. Anyway.
Oh yeah, KISW is not an iHeart station.
No, that's not.
I probably don't know him.
That's my bad. But this guy would kind of tip me off to some things that were happening. And from what I understood, they wanted Wease to stay and do his music show on the weekends through the end of the contract, which was coming up at the end of this year.
That's what Wease had said on his he did allude to that on his final show.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then he did say that was he wasn't going to do it, and he was very upset. We did talk briefly after his final broadcast, and he says he's going to do a podcast at some point, and he will do he'll reveal all at some point. But I just think that people don't understand that these things. Well, there's two, to me, Beej, and you can speak to this very well. There are two things at play here. One is business. Business is cold and has no emotion. It's just about making money or not making money. Was it Wease's fault that the station was not making money? No, he was near retirement himself. He was, he had it. I think he stayed longer than he intended to stay, but maybe I'm wrong. So I don't think there was anything really there, but the rest of the station, the ratings were horrible. The place was like basically a dumpster fire. And so you got to make a change. But the emotional side, and especially what we did and do, is talk to people and make connections. And that's hard because you have become people's friends. And I think that I tried to look up some radio stats. I still think currently in the United States, and I don't know when this is from, around 92% of Americans listen to the radio at least once a week. 31% tune in daily, which is down from 37% in 2023. So we're going back a few years on that data. It may be even lower now.
Do you know what the problem with that is, Billy? The problem with that is nobody in the advertising world believes those numbers. I don't know if they're true or not. I'm not a statistician. But what I do know, nobody believes it. Listeners, younger people don't believe that. And a lot of advertising agencies, big companies, they don't believe that. It is very frustrating. It's very, very frustrating that if that number is true, that somehow, some way, radio can't get people to believe it. Because, my gosh, the price that radio charges for advertising, and if those numbers are true, the return on investment's insane.
Right.
But that really is the big problem. They can't get people to believe that number is true, that statistic is true.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to go back at some point and hit some of your time with Wease, but let's keep on this sort of trajectory of what happens in radio. I mean, there's so many layers, and this is why. So they knew.
I have a great story that won't get me in trouble because it happened so long ago, but it will illustrate your point about the ridiculous nature of how they don't plan and how they are also so covert and ridiculously secret that they will hurt people's lives. They will do really dumb things. And this still goes on in radio, but this happened to me many years ago, so it won't get me in trouble in any current situation or even in anything that happened in the last 20 years of my career, because this happened more than 20 years ago, but this is very typical for radio, how they operate. We'll get to that if you want to.
Yeah, no, I'd like to, because I'm just saying that I think that they knew they were making this move back around May. That's my guess. Only because if it's iHeart, and probably any radio company, they're going to want to do a music test, which takes time to find out what lane we go in if we're getting out of the spoken word genre. And then I think a lot of people were very hurt because a personality as big as Wease and as such a part of the fabric of the community, it would be like Letterman saying, I'm retiring in a year, and we have time to prepare. And you do things. You practically have a parade for the person. I mean, I know some people go, well, Wease is old news. Okay, maybe, but he wasn't. And to me, he deserved that. He did too much for the community. I think the problem, BJ, corporate radio is very big and runs very lean. When I left, I was doing business reports for the news station and helping produce Brother Wease's show, a talk show with John DiTullio, and 80 stations around the country. I mean, it's just the way it is. And if you look at the guys in charge here, they're in charge all the way down to New York City, practically along the thruway, in terms of markets and managing and all that. And I just think they don't have the manpower, and they don't have the people who know Wease that well anymore to put something together. I really do. I don't know that it's a lack of caring. Certainly, I guess I always say this, so maybe I'm contradicting myself. If you want to, you will, is what I always say. If you want to, you will. So if they wanted to, I guess they would, but there was it should have been planned. this hasn't been a secret to somebody that his contract was going to end. And that's the part that I go, boy, you really missed something. And oh, by the way, could have made a shit ton of money, right?
Yeah. I was in that same situation with KISW for Odyssey, where it was the last year of my contract in 2023. And it was the same thing. It was they were in a situation where they were like, we have to make a change. It was more financial in my case. Whereas I don't know what the real issue is with why they couldn't do what they wanted to do and keep Wease. I don't know. I mean, you and I can guess, but I don't know why they decided to let Wease go. But for me, it was financial. I got to talk to my general manager because he retired shortly after I left the station. So we got together for lunch, and I said, I want to know everything. Tell me everything. I'm not going to be mad at you. I just want to know. It's really good to know how things went down. And they, what they did, though, to their credit, was, they gave me enough lead time and said, look, here's what we're going to do, and it's not going to include you. And that gave me enough lead time to, to figure it out. They let me stay on air, which I thought was really bizarre, because normally you don't want someone on air. You want to force them to almost have like a non-compete.
That was a really, really, I thought, unique situation for you.
Yeah, well, the company, I'll tell you, the local people, which is why I always love KISW. I don't know if corporate wanted them to do this, but I know that local management said, we're going to do right by this guy. We're not going to enforce this. In Washington State, it's really hard to enforce a non-compete. They're really unenforceable in most cases. And in my case, it would have been unenforceable, because they just said, we don't want you anymore. And then Washington State would say, well, he gets to go do what he wants. You said goodbye. They said, well, we're not going to give you a hard time anyway if you find something else. And they also said, we want to give you a proper send-off. You've been here for almost 20 years at this radio station. You had amazing success for us. Not only the fact that you worked for our company at another station and had great success, we want to honor you. And so they did the right thing. And my partner, Steve Miggs, put together a fantastic show for me. So to your point, Billy, it gave closure. That's the thing. The reason I wasn't going to do it at first, because I was bitter, because I can't believe you people don't want me. Because I had the weird thing where I was brought in an office. We had been fighting really hard with a very top show, the Brooke and Jeffrey show here in Seattle, and they're syndicated, and they're a very successful show. But we were really going neck and neck with them at this point, and I finally beat them. Like we were, like in the month of May, we were number 3. Then in the month of June, we were number 2. Finally, in the month of July, we were number 1 and beat them. So I get called into management's office, and I thought, they're going to be so happy with me. They're seeing that our show's amazing, and then they said, no, we're going to let you go at the end of the year. And I was like, what? I've never been let go at number 1. This is insane to me. But that's where the business is. But even still, they gave me the final show, and I wasn't going to do it. But then a lot of people got to me and said, what about the listeners? What about everybody that loved you over the years? What about, like they would give them some closure. Radio never gives closure. And I finally said, okay, I'll do it. And I'm so glad that I did, because everybody from the station came in. They got people. I mean, Steve did such a great job. He got rock luminaries. Duff McKagan is saying goodbye. Those are the kind of things, even more, it would have been a ton more for Wease because of all the great relationships he had. I can't believe they didn't do that.
No, and I do wonder, Beej, honestly, if looking at it, I mean, look, you worked with Wease, right? It would always be, brah, you take care of that, right? He just
exactly.
He was the guy behind the mic and living the life and bringing the stories in. Anybody else had to do the other stuff, and I even remember trying to get him. I put a syndication package together when I produced his show, and his agent, who's since passed at the time, took it and he used the syndication package I put together for Opie and Anthony. It's a real story. That is absolutely true. And so I go, okay, but so I always just thought Wease just needed someone who could kind of manage the Wease brand, more or less. And I did that sort of when I was producing his show, but then, when he left and I stayed with Tommy and we had some nice success and all, I still, I always appreciated Wease. And I still think, I go, here's just an example. You worked at CMF. Dave Kane did a music show afterwards. Dave's super talented, knows music, but he did a music show.
great guy too, by the way. Dave
Yeah.
is such a good guy.
But 40 years, gets a key to the city,
Yeah.
then announces his retirement. They have a retirement party. They have a whole send-off. They do all this stuff. And then the station he's on gets into the local music hall of fame, and he's the one to induct it. And Wease, it's like, yeah, see, don't let the door hit you in the ass. And that's the part that
I want to say, again, because I just had a great career, that's an Odyssey station. And you talk about two different companies. Odyssey really, respects those brands. Now, Odyssey's not a perfect company. A lot of people, including myself, had a lot to say, but they definitely, you see what they do for, Dave Kane, what Odyssey Seattle did for me, and you see what was done for Wease. It's pretty glaring.
Yeah, and I just wonder too, though, if it became locally, like everybody's just stretched so thin, and the people around him now don't know him as well.
Well, look.
Miggs was with you from the beginning, pretty much.
Yeah, well, but the thing is that someone could have done something. If you listen to the broadcast, this seemed to be a shock to his management team because it seemed like up until, because we said I was going back and forth at night last night figuring out if I should do this. When I heard that, I thought, so I bet his managers thought, oh, he's going to tell everybody I got a weekend show and I'm going to go do this.
That is exactly what they thought. That is exactly what they thought.
Yeah. So my thing is that it was.
See, they
didn't know this was going to happen. But I'm a geeky board game strategist, loser, nerd. I know Wease. And so if I were his manager, I'd be like, guys, we need to plan a plan B. What do you mean a plan B? Wease says he's going to do this. I go, yeah, we said this right now. We still have 24 hours. Anything can happen in 24 hours with Wease. What are we going to do if, in fact, he just doesn't want to do this after all? Like, I would have asked that question in meetings and said, what are we going to do? Secondly, you still should have a final show. And then at the end, you can go, oh, by the way, I'm not gone. I'm going to go do this. But it still should have been a final show because he's no longer doing a daily show. He's no longer good at, come on. This should have, it's such bad planning. And I know some of the people that work there in management. I know them. I've interacted with them as a professional.
I know.
And I have opinions. I won't give them.
Oh. Okay.
Because my mother and father taught me, say nothing if you know. So, but
you have nothing good to say about anybody.
Yeah,
scream into a microphone.
Yeah, because of some of the people that work there that I know, I am not surprised that this got bungled. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair. Your time with Wease, I mean, you really were part of his great success, or his rise to the great success. I mean, you were in there. It was you and Cindy and Wease, and I mean that was a very interesting.
I will tell you that he was at the top of his game. That, like, the ratings were insane when I got there, and I first got there with a person named Chris Shire. She was the one that recommended me for the job, and she was the news person for our show. So it was Wease, myself, and Chris, and then eventually Cindy came along. And you're right. The trio of Cindy, myself, and Wease. There was something that just, I think, unlocked. Wease in a short amount of time teaches you that whatever you think you know about radio, and this was back in the 80s, so I thought I knew about radio because everybody was doing crappy radio, and I was at the top of that heap of crappy radio. And then you meet Wease and think, is this can't be, nobody does it this way. But eventually you realize, as an artist, you go, oh my God, this is great. This is so good. You could just feel it happening. And even though management was resistant, even though a lot of people who did crappy radio were resistant, he was such a threat to everybody's job because he was upending what was considered good. And there were so many people resistant to Wease because they're like, oh my God, people are going to turn around and realize I suck. I don't want that to happen. I'll lose my job. So I've got to make Wease look like he's bad. He's a problem. There was so much of that I saw in the early days. So much of that. But it was great to learn. Yeah, it was. But Wease, and also it's funny. Wease is a very courageous person on air. He will fight the good fight. He'll do anything. But when it comes to management, he will play ball. He doesn't like to fight. what I think he saw in me was that I was too stupid to understand you have to play ball.
Oh, yeah.
And I was much more courageous off air. Like on air, I was afraid to take some of, and Louise would go, "Bro, take a chance, take a chance. What are you doing? Just be who you, be you." I'm like, "Louise, I'm a geek. Nobody loves geeks." "No, bro, I believe just be you, be it. They'll love you if you're you, but nobody loves geeks." He goes, "You're right, bro. I would never want to be you either. You still got to be you." And off air, they would be like, "Here's what we want Wease to do," and Wease would be like, he'd sit there and and he would ask for forgiveness rather than permission. But I could see that they would try to beat him down. So off air, I was a terrorist because I saw that this is a great talent, and that management would try to give him a hard time. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to be the tiger that Wease isn't. And I was horrific. I was a horrific employee. But because Wease and I got along, we had good ratings, I was able to say things to management, and frankly, put them in their place, because I saw they were actually making life tough on Wease. And I thought, you guys are insane. You're not supposed to make talent crazy. You're supposed to support them. So I would say, well, you know what? I'm going to be the angry guy here. And unfortunately, that's all I ever was in my career, which is why I didn't have as great of a career as I could, because I fought with management every day. Because management's mediocre. A pro tip for anybody in radio: if you're a manager, don't tell anybody. Make up another job, because being a manager in radio is lower than somebody that sweeps basically crap out of a zoo. You're not good. Radio management is the lowest form of life form there is, and you're not talented. I don't care if you're a CEO in radio. Don't tell anybody you're a CEO in that business, because again, anybody can be. You can get orangutans to do your job, and that's just. And you see things like this. This is a managerial failure on every level. I mean, his company on every level failed. He is a Hall of Fame broadcaster. Who gets in the Hall of Fame these days in radio
from Rochester? Right.
This is a massive failure. And I can excuse corporate, because look, the CEO of his company maybe shouldn't know how great Wease is, because most radio managers don't know just the history of somebody being just an amazing talent in a town like Wease. But local knows, and this is a massive failure. And this is what's wrong with radio. I get radio has its challenges, but it's always had challenges with bad management. They don't have people that go to managerial training programs that actually teach them how to be managers. They take people who should never interact with artists, and that would be a salesperson. A salesperson should never interact with an artist. It is the wrong thing to do, and they put them in charge. A salesperson should never be in charge of anything, because they don't care about anything but convincing people to do what they want. That's not a good manager. They're great at going out and that's what radio does. Or they'll get some program director who's basically just a computer, and they don't know how to talk to people either. And radio continues to make this mistake. They don't have casting directors, so they always put people together who don't know how to do radio. They'll put, this person will be great with this person. No, they have no chemistry. How do you not see that? The business is bereft of good management. Oh, sorry, Billy. I'm off. I'm ranting about how bad management is in the industry. It's systemically bad.
I hit that nerve, Beach.
Oh yeah. Can you think of a good manager? I know like 3 that I've worked with in my career. It's like how bad it is.
I thought Stan Main was great when I worked with him. I don't know how he was when you worked with him.
I'll tell you right now, Stan was one of those guys that he had to make the adjustment, because Stan and I both were cut from the same cloth. This is how you do radio. And then Wease upended both of our worlds. Right. And to Stan's credit, Stan was like, okay, I'm going to make the adjustment. And you don't find a lot of human beings that can do that. Stan Main was a person that could actually say, you know what, I'm not afraid of this. I will roll with this, because a lot of program directors would be afraid of Wease because they have to look like it's them. Program directors go, it's me that's doing this. I'm the one that's creating the success. Stan realized, well, there's no way that I can sell that I'm in charge of the entire success of this. Wease is a huge part of it. But Stan was really good at making the adjustment. And then everything else that happened on the radio station outside of Wease, Stan was a master orchestrator of all that. Yeah. I agree with you. Stan was one of the good ones.
Yeah, I thought Stan was good. And then the late John Thomas. I don't know if you ever interacted with him.
I never got to work with John, no.
JT, he was one of my absolute favorite guys. I had 2 good managers. Then there were, the other ones. I I turned
Oh, the carpet
into
salesman. Did you ever work with a carpet salesman?
no.
Yeah. The guy who told me Wease was horrible, and now he's selling carpet somewhere. I'm just like, you got to be. Why do I have to listen to a guy that I'm going to walk into the
Oh
mall and
my
he's going to ask me if
God.
I want?
I know
Yeah. So I
exactly.
want. Yeah. Oh, you know who it is. It's like he's literally was a carpet salesman. I'm like, this
Oh,
guy's telling me that the
no.
biggest success in Rochester
Oh.
shouldn't be on the radio, and then 2 days later, I'm walking in the mall. He's asking me if I want Berber or Shag. Oh, get away from me, man! Please get away from me with this ridiculousness.
That was that's very funny. I forgot about it.
I won't mention him by name, but he's a complete lovely individual, and I hope his carpet sales are well.
The it's just funny because I did think I had somebody come to me early in my career who is maybe in managing still today and said to me, you could be a GM. Let me train you to be a GM. You don't want to go in afternoons and die somewhere. And I said no. And I blew off the meetings and I wouldn't go because I didn't want that. Now, I also wish I hadn't pushed so hard against from whence I came, so to speak. I came from, educated parents who had master's degrees and doctorates and, that sort of thing. And I just wanted to be the rebel. I wanted to not have to tell, you know what I mean? All these different things. So it was just very interesting to me to see that. And I think it was Wease over the years, and then especially when I was part of his show, that you could just kind of be yourself and start to share your opinions and your insights. And I had learned early on, and I don't know about you, I still think this was one of the greatest times in radio for me. I sat out a year at St. John Fisher College here in Rochester, now university, and I worked midnight to 6 on rock station in Poughkeepsie. And I got bored playing music. So I knew nobody important was listening in the middle of the night. So I just opened the phone speech and I did Who's Up and Why at 3:00 in the morning. And I called payphones. I did all this. And it was just people looking to feel like they had a friend or they mattered and they were heard. And that's what I realized radio was. And to me, that's the greatest thing is I loved people. I was so curious about people. I loved people. Well, why did they do certain things? I'm not a strip club guy, but I had gigs at strip clubs. I wanted to know what the fuck this guy was coming every day to see Ginger, who was never going to sleep with him. And he brought her flowers once in a while. It was like, what head? I want to know. I found it so interesting, really interesting. And that was like, and it was a playground for me to do all that stuff. But then, what the cool thing with Wease was like, because I was Maranimal at first, he would make fun of me. And I go, yeah, he's right. You're trying too hard. Because authenticity has become, it's now like the buzzword, Well, if it's a podcast that's going to work, it's got to be authentic. And it's, it was. It always was. We just denied it. Whatever.
If somebody tells you they're authentic, you're like, no, you don't get it. You've kind of missed the point.
Goes,
Thanks for trying, Jimmy. Yeah, really appreciate that.
Dumbest thing in the world. That's the dumbest thing.
Wease was one of those people. He's like the leaders, He's like Atreides. I don't want to lead, son, but you got to lead for you Dune fans. Wease was the talent who never believed he was a talent. He never thought he was an artist. He and I had so many fights about this because I really consider myself a performer, which is another problem with radio is they don't consider it a performing art. They've ruined the industry with this management mindset and some guy named Laszlo put out this Facebook message about how radio's not an art. And I took great exception to that. And I know Laszlo. He used to work at my company. And I'm just so tired of people who are not artists sitting there saying this business is not about art. It's like, it's a performing art. I mean, radio once convinced this country we were being invaded by Martians. That's how good of an art it was. So Wease typifies why it's a great art because he is perhaps the best storyteller this industry has ever seen. You and I both know on or off the air, once he starts spinning a yarn, he captivates whoever is around him. He just doesn't know his own strength. I'm not an artist, bro. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to fight with you about this. Yes, you are. You have so much unbelievable talent. You just don't want to know it for whatever reason. I don't care. Just keep being you. But he is a great, great talent. Again, another reason why this is such a travesty. He could have been anything. He could have gone anywhere. Billy, we had opportunities to go to New York and Los Angeles when he and I were working together. I put together air checks and things, but he loved Rochester. And he was just like, look, I'm going to stay here. This is my town. I love this place. I'm successful here. And he still transcended Rochester. I mean, that Woodstock video that he made, was people. I put that on my page recently, just said, hey, I want you guys to know a bit about the man that was my mentor and who means so much to me. My listeners were like, oh my God, this guy is so cool. I wish I could have listened to him. Yeah. He was a great talent. And that's why it's so sad if this is how he goes out. It's just, what a ridiculous, ridiculous travesty. And I wish the radio had a governing body. I mean, even though like in the NFL, the commissioner is useless, but still every once in a while, the commissioner will go to the owners and say, look, this is a bad look. Can you guys do something about this? I know you guys run the show, but can you do something about this? It's a bad look. And there's nothing in radio that seems to be able to go to the major companies and say, this is a bad look. You need to do it differently. And I don't have a problem with the what. It's the how. Wease had to go, probably. That's what they said. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. There's an expiration date on everything. But how they did it, they did it was horrible.
You are absolutely right. And I think that they knew that he had signed on for one more year, and this was going to be the last year. I think they knew that at the beginning of the year. I think they knew they were flipping the format on this station sometime many months ago. And that's the bummed out part, because people do lose jobs. And it comes down as a sudden and shocking thing to you, but they knew it all along.
And why do they have to keep these things a secret? It to me, like, maybe they won't announce the plans. I get they don't have to announce the plans, but they could tell Wease after he signed that contract, or maybe whenever they made the decision, pull him aside and say, hey, we're not going to continue with you. That's what happened to me. And my company trusted me because I was still on the air for 5 months.
Right.
They trusted me not to go on and lose my S. I mean, they trusted that I wouldn't go on there and just start bad mouthing everything and blow the place up. I mean, that was 5 more months I had to do a show knowing that I was dead man walking. Radio doesn't seem to get that. It's different now, and let's make a plan. Let's have an exit. And like the story I wanted to tell you is this was more than 25, this might be 30 years ago. I applied for a job and they said, okay, we love you. Let's go. The general manager, the program director, we sat down, everybody loved each other. And they said, look, come on over. And I'm like, oh, I need a contract. And they go, well, yeah, our company's not going to let us give you a contract. I said, well, I'm not coming out. I'm not moving my family to your town. And they thought, well, yeah, that's reasonable. So they went back to their company. Their company's like, well, okay, we're not going to give them a contract. And they said, what do you want us to do? We're not going to hire somebody good, and they're not going to bring their family out. So the company begrudgingly said, oh, fine. And the reason they were so resistant, and this is what happened, Billy, and this is still what happens. A month after I got there and started my morning show, they fired the general manager. 3 months, they fired the program director. And in 5 months, the station had flipped format. There was a brand new morning show. I had a guaranteed contract. So they said, well, we're going to move you to evenings. And
this is Phoenix.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now you know. Yeah, exactly. They knew all the time. They knew all the time. Right. I'm like, you shouldn't have hired me. I moved my entire family, and the company knew that they were never going to keep me. And the sad thing is I actually did get good ratings that they should have kept me because they hired a different show. And here's the other this is the thing that radio does. So I had a bonus structure that said, hey, you'll get ratings if you're in number 1, number 2, or number 3. You'll get bonuses. At night, I was number 1. I was number 1 at night. I had a great show at night. And they said, yeah, but we're not going to bonus you. I'm like, why are you going to bonus me? They said, well, your contract says that it's 6 to 10 a.m. And I looked at the manager and I said, and you look really happy. I did get one bonus when I was at the company. It was my first book. I was number 2. And then they took me off mornings and said, we're going to put this other guy on. That other guy never, ever got me a bonus. And I said to him, and he was always laughing like, we didn't have to give you because of 6 to 10. I said, you're the idiot that doesn't have bonuses in the morning. I want to tell you, you can be mad at it. You can sit there and think you're genius, but your morning show is so bad that you don't have any bonuses. You want bonuses. You want to be number one.
Yeah.
Radio is so, and it's still that way. It is still that way. They keep secrets. They ruin people's lives. They don't do what you're supposed, and they don't give a damn about the customer, because the customer is like, what happened? Where did it go? Or even the way Wease went out, people are just sad. Like, this is it. This is, and they don't care. And you know why they don't care? Because they know, in my opinion, this is my opinion, they know radio's on the way out. They're strip mining it. They just know that they're going to leave a dead husk, and the golden parachute people don't care. And the two big companies have new owners. They have these new owners with restructuring and bankruptcy. These new owners do not care about anything but just getting the last drop of dollar. They don't care. And anybody with the brain in their head knows this. The radio industry, unfortunately, is not in good shape. And it's because the people that own them just don't care, at least in my opinion, in the big companies.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that corporate radio, we'll call it that, has ruined radio to a certain extent in that. And I've said on this podcast, I was part of the problem. You're on in markets you've never walked the street. You're reading liners talking about an event that's going on that you don't even know if you're pronouncing it correctly. They may call you up and go, hey, man, it's the hoochie-nanny, not hoochie-nooney or whatever. I'm just saying, like, anything that was a colloquialism was lost in that. And so now you've homogenized and lost those things. I will ask you this. I do believe that radio is still viable primarily in the spoken word format at a local level. If you brought it back to the local level. So you're in Seattle, we're here in Rochester. If you had stations that were just serving here, and that's why I don't like when I hear, I don't care who it is, I don't care what my relationship was with the person, if we ever worked together, I don't like hearing local voices off the radio. I don't. I think that it's bad for the industry as a whole, and I think it hurts the local community because, you know, if the 104 bridge and it feels like it sways, I don't know that if I've never driven the 104 bridge. You understand what I'm saying? Like back to Webster. And so those are the things that I think that I go, but if somebody, and I do think at some point they're going to have to start selling them off because they're not going to be making their money and they've gotten so big. And, you know, Ryan Seacrest seems like a real nice guy, but he's on all the stations. It's homogenized, you know, for iHeart, and whoever it is for Odyssey has certain talent like that as well. And to be those talent, it's great. That's nice. It's a nice life. But it's not you don't get that personal. And that's the thing that Wease to me was like, I started thinking about it when we were talking. I mean, I produced a show during his cancer time. And I will never forget when he was on, he would come on from New York City and he was talking about how bad the radiation is and how much it sucked. He would only, some days it was a half hour, some days not at all, some days 2 hours. But, you know, he did as much as he could during that time.
I have a story about his cancer that'll also illustrate how horrible this industry is. I will tell you. I will tell you if you want. I mean, I don't even know if Wease knows this story. So I don't know if I've even told him, but I will tell you something that, when you're ready, I just want to let you know. Yeah,
let me finish this thought and we'll go right
ahead. Yeah. Go right ahead. Yeah.
Here's my point with why I think Wease needed this. Wease's son, Sammy, was, I don't know how old, like 7, 6, 5, I don't know, somewhere in there, maybe 10, somewhere in that range. I'll say 5 to 10 years old when Wease was going through this. And Wease comes on and he's talking about how bad it is and how bad the radiation is. And a listener who was very active, and some listeners would become part of your life. Like I had guys come over when I was on the radio doing mornings and help me build a treehouse for my kids. Just listeners pulled up with the thing, right? Wease had people like that too. And this woman who would be on the radio and get talked about and got known because through the Wease show calls up and says, Wease, if you want to give up, you've done everything you can. We love you. We support you. But if you just can't hack it, we understand. Don't worry about it. And man, you would have thought Doreen practically dove across whatever couch she was near. She's screaming into the microphone, don't you tell my husband to give up. What the? And then somebody has Sammy, who's still here in Rochester. He's like a little boy. He gets on. He goes, Daddy, don't give up. He's calling. And I go, you can't have I mean, that was emotional and an investment.
Yeah.
And it was the Osbournes before the Osbournes. It was, you know what I'm saying? It was a real reality show. There was nothing scripted here. Weeze had no writers. Stern has writers. Ryan Seacrest has writers. He didn't have writers. And that stuff was so authentic. And people remember it. I remember sitting in the studio I had headphones on. I'm sitting there with a microphone in front of me saying nothing because I don't know what to say. And I'm just taking all this in. And I go, you can't have that personality in this town. So into the fabric of people's lives and people so into his life and just go, well, that's it, folks. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
What happened?
You're right, Billy. That's why this is such a travesty.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention in the industry, the industry itself, so many people contacted me, people that nobody in Rochester know, but they knew Weeze. He affected their lives by going to conventions and just owning the panels and being Weeze on panels. He changed so many radio careers. People just did an about face and said, oh, we better stop doing our show the way we're doing it. We'll never win. Weeze is the future. So many people love him and would have come on his show. Like, it would have been a cavalcade of stars of anybody and everywhere. It's disappointing to all of us, including a lot of people that Rochesterians don't know about, but radio luminaries that would be like, you got to be kidding me. My story is that right after the Phoenix debacle, where I was doing nights, I was brought back to Rochester.
I do this.
Yeah. So I didn't know this. This is where I had to talk to the carpet salesman, and I had a massive argument with the carpet salesman because I went to the carpet salesman, and when I was brought in, we believe in you. We want to do this afternoon personality show, and we're going to put you with Bull. And I love Bull, and I personally believe Bull and I were onto something really good, even though we was like, what the hell are you guys doing? I just felt like, look, dude, I think we're doing something that eventually became the core of what I did in Seattle and made me whatever the hell I am in Seattle. But at the time, it was really revolutionary. We got good response. It wasn't like we were horrible, but we weren't brought there for that. That was the problem. We were not brought there to do an afternoon show. They really thought, the management team thought that Weeze was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know it. Yeah, they thought he was going to die. And they wanted me as a replacement. But they didn't tell me that. They moved me and my family out there, and they just said, oh, hey, we just want you. You're a great talent. How cool would it be? Weeze in the morning, BJ in the afternoon. I mean, they sold me on this. They also paid me really well. So I thought, okay, they're not full of crap. So I thought, all right, I mean, I'll do this. I love Rochester. What a great opportunity. And then when Weeze didn't die, honestly, it was amazing how it's like and I remember I was my family, we wanted to buy a house. We were there for like 1.5 years, and my wife was like, let's buy a place, the kids love it here. So we found a nice place in Brighton. The kids love the school, they love their friends, they love the neighborhood. And I went to them before buying the house because we had toured the neighborhood, and a couple of people knew who I was, and so they were like, please move in. And so I went to the carpet salesman and I said, look, I'm getting a vibe here. I just have my spidey sense is tingling. I don't know, but I just feel like I shouldn't buy a house, but my wife is killing me. We can afford to buy a house, but I just feel like this might not be the right thing. Why am I getting this vibe? Oh no, buy the house. You're here forever. You're here forever. I buy the house. 3 months later, they're like, you're done. And I noticed so I'm like, what is happening? So I remember being me, I peppered the carpet salesman. I insulted him. I did everything I could because I know the behavioral science strategies to get people to tell you the truth. And, you poke at every button you can. And finally, he just blurted it out. He's like, we thought he was going to die, and he isn't dying, so we don't need you. I'm like, oh my God. And that's radio. It's like, I remember saying, you upended my entire life. I had a life, and you moved me to Rochester under these false pretenses. And it's like, I am so angry at this business because I had just gone through it in Phoenix with lying and deception. Mm-hmm. And, I'm so happy Weeze is alive, but it's like, did Weeze know that they didn't care about him? They were just trying to keep the gravy train going. And first of all, there's no way I could have replaced Wease. It's like, what a dumb thing.
No,
I mean, what a bunch of morons. I mean, really.
So at that time, I was like the promotion director. So I would be in some of these meetings, and they called it building a bench.
Yeah.
So they wanted you, and they brought in Beth to do nights, and I thought it was great. And then they moved me out of a management role and put me on the Zone to do mornings, which was another station that they had, and that was fun.
I remember that. Yeah.
But that was it. And so I never really heard much after that. But I was under the impression everybody knew they were building a bench. And you forget, they say a lot of stuff behind closed doors that they don't tell you. And I don't know if it's two things. One, it's a power play. And the other is I just think they think less of talent. Like, you're too emotional and you can't handle it. And it's a radio thing. It's not a TV thing. And I always loved, because I'm working on something that I'd like to do where I go out, and I would come to Seattle even and film just conversation radio days, stories like this. And one of the guys I want to sit down with, who I talked to once and told me a fucking great story about radio. He had been in TV. He gets in radio. His manager calls up and says, hey, can you provide peanut butter? He wants peanut butter in the morning. Can you provide peanut butter? And the radio's like, what? We don't do that here. That's not what we do. Like, this isn't craft services. This is like, you see the disparity, how they treated talent. Like, talent in TV, it would be like, what do you want? We're going to make sure you're happy. We want you to be at your best. We're looking for the best from you. How can we help pull the best out? How do we make you comfortable? How do we do that? Radio, it's like, fuck, it's you and her, or him and you, and go. That's like, oh my God. And when you look at it, it is absolutely insane. And that does make me laugh. It's funny. I hadn't really thought of it that way, Beach. And I love that you're calling this guy the carpet salesman. He was such a douche. I just have to say this. I've told this story a few times. I've never used his name. I don't know if it was prior or after you. No, it had to be prior to you. He had inserted himself, because Stan Main put me in afternoons and then was sort of pushed out to Austin. And so I'm doing afternoons, and the carpet salesman becomes the guy in charge now. He comes in, and he was part of a show in Boston, which was a pretty big show in Boston. And he would play bits for Wease. You need to do stuff like this. And it was like drunk Magnum PI. Like, Magnum PI wasn't even on the fucking air at the time. Yeah. So this guy's doing. And then he decides that he was trying. I didn't realize this. Here's another one. He was trying to push me, because at the time I might have been 23, 24 years old. He's trying to push me to overnights. He wanted Uncle Raj, who did overnights, to come and do like afternoons. And Raj wasn't coming off overnights because he didn't want to deal with management. He didn't want to see people during.
Yeah, you know what? Raj was perfect for right where he was. There's no way he wanted to interact with the idiots. No. You know, he was smarter than all of us. He was smarter than all of us.
So this guy decides that he's going to extend Dave Kane till 4, and then he's going to do 4 to 6, and then I was to do 6 to 9. He used the radio as a dating service.
Oh, did he? Shocker.
He dated caller number 9. He would invite the women up. They would he'd tell them they'd have to get there, because I think the station closed at 5:30. I think the front office. So he said, you got to get here before 5:30. And then he would ask people to go up and check out the woman. And if she was
lovely man,
decent, he would come out and see them. But if not, he had a meeting, something popped up, he couldn't get to them, blah blah blah.
That was our leader.
Yes. This was. I can't tell leader. You. I had another one, Beej. I played strip trivia, and a woman would come up, and she was just a listener. And she was pretty open, even on the radio at times, saying, my husband travels a lot. And she danced the line, but saying how lonely she would get. She calls me once and says, I just left your boss and she names the hotel that he had banged. And she's going on about how terrible he is. And she's telling me this whole story. And he walks in the fucking studio. And you know how, like, the calls, I'm playing music, but the little speaker, oh God, it was an awful day for me. But but at the same time, so entertaining. And it tells you so much about these people, that there's this internal happiness that they just don't have. And so they got to then shit on everybody else. And that's not what you need in life.
Radio's best people are its talent, because they're artists that want to make the world a better place. Look, you know Wease. You know how Wease is. At the end of the day, you know, his show was his heart coming through, trying to make the world a better place. A lot of people may have had complaints about the fact it was too political. But Wease was like, dude, I am doing what I can do to give back and make the world a better place. That's who he's always been. And that's the heart of an artist, which is why he and I will always fight. It's like, Wease, you are so an artist. You have the heart, because that's what artists do. Artists want to just use whatever their gifts are to make the world better. You know, and sure, whether you agree with his politics or not, you can't disagree with where his heart is. And, you know, like he said in the Woodstock video, he never grew into this conservative person who was bitter and stopped having a heart. He just maintained that he was the same hippie that he always was, with those ideals of can't we all just get along and love each other? I mean, God, that's a horrible credo to live by, isn't it? Whereas radio management, those are not the best of the best. There's a great story, which I love, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. At the end of that book, at the end of the multiple books, they basically leave a planet and leave all the salespeople behind, all the marketers, all the salespeople, because they go, you really add nothing to humanity. And it's so we know this. I know not all salespeople are bad, and also salespeople have been pretty mistreated by our industry as well. I have some friends. So, but it's the salespeople that go into management that really don't belong in management, that just don't have the skill set. It's like, hey, look, go out and sell what you sell. Thank you very much, but you're not a manager. And they ruin talent. They ruin this business, and they ruin people's just will to live sometimes, because they don't understand how we operate. The reason you get us for a ridiculous price, and the reason kids are still wanting to do this, is they love the art. That's why they'll do 5 jobs, 10 jobs, 12 jobs and get paid minimum wage. It's not because you're a great negotiator and you pull one over. It's because they don't care about money. They want to do their art. And this business takes advantage of that. Like, you know, I mean, a lot of entertainment businesses do, but radio is the worst, I think. And I mean, that's why it's the way it is now, because the internet, these people could go on the internet and do their art. And now they can make pretty much what radio is paying, because radio is not paying like it used to. And someone says, I can go do a podcast and get my Patreon going and pretty much make the same money that you want to pay me, except I don't got to listen to your crap. Why?
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's the radio still has the arrogance, like, oh no, we're the big dog. We're the big, and I'm like, no, your stock price is lower than, you know, below sea level, and you can't be arrogant. You can't. You've just been delisted. No, you're not a Wall Street company anymore, and therefore don't act like you are. You guys have failed. It's a failure, but you still can do something. But you need to figure out that you're failures and get people who are not failures. If they fired everybody in management and brought in anybody in at half price, they can't do a worse job. I don't care who they bring in. They can't do a worse job. And that's the sad thing about it. And they keep instead cutting talent, cutting people, and cutting this. A real good friend of mine just got let go at Odyssey. And he, a terrific talent, behind the scenes guy. And boy, was he so instrumental in so many things that we did. He made us look so good at all of our live broadcast remotes and all the wonderful things we did at KISW. He was a guy that nobody ever saw, but was so instrumental and wore a ridiculous amount of hats, and still no room for him. Ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous what this business has become.
Yeah, it's running lean, and it's one that doesn't care. And on the artist side, you're more of an emotional, sensitive person. Not you. I mean, collective you. Our language, right?
We deserve better. And the listeners of Rochester listeners, because let's be honest, I would say 1/3 to 50% of that town know who Wease is. Whether or not you listen to a show, or you might have listened to a little bit, but you've got generational listening. You've got grandfathers, fathers, and sons and daughters and grandmothers and mothers who listened, like they all listened together. He was perhaps one of the biggest stars ever to come out of that town in any entertainment media. And that's the send-off. Okay, radio. What? And again, where's the governing body to pull somebody aside and say, this is bad. You guys have hurt the industry. You guys have hurt our industry. And I don't know, the NAB, the RAB, you're just letters to me. I don't think you do a damn thing because you allow this to happen. You're like you're like you're like the MLB commissioner. You're like the NFL commissioner. You're useless.
Yeah.
You really are. And I'm sorry to say it, but that's what I do. That's why nobody wants to work with me. Wease would never say that. Wease's last show. Wease and Doreen were so kind on their last show, and
I didn't hear it. So,
yeah, and they were kind, and I know they wanted to make sure they didn't make trouble for anybody.
Yeah.
I get that. Me, no. I mean, even on my last show, I basically called out the a-holes. I did anyway, even though it was my last show. You're a great guy. Let's talk to Duff McKagan. And I'm like, oh, yeah, don't forget the guy we used to work for. He's a moron. I hope he dies. That was me because I just so angry at the people that ruin this business. And it was my last show. So, like, what are you going to do? Fire me? And, I don't know how long Wease has got in his contract. I understand, obviously, if depending on how long it is, all right, you got to play nice. For me, that day was my last day. Like, that was my last, like, okay, you're not going to pay me tomorrow. So what are you going to do? Not pay me? You're going to fight? I mean, and I was happy to go out that way. And I also am a fair person. I love my local management team. I thought the corporate people that I had to deal with were idiots and all the way to the top. And they just were not good at their jobs. And, if they were, well, that's horrible. I go, well, point to the ratings. Their ratings are the stock price. You're not good at your job. I don't care whatever email you put out there. Your ratings are horrible because no one's making money off your company. You should do a career seppuku. Do us a favor, go up behind a friggin' bush and fall on the career sword and save us all the embarrassment. I mean, you know what? If you had any honor, if you were raised in a culture like the Japanese culture, you would do that for your family.
Beach, talk to me about the mental health stuff a little bit. Because
what are you talking about? I'm perfect. Look at me. I have a picture of mental health.
Yeah, but we'll get to the show you did. But here's one that shocked me, saddened me deeply, was whatever was going on with Ace. That one caught me by surprise, and I know there was a lot of there was some tragedy in his life of recent kind and changes and things, but do we need to look out for the mental health of the performers a little bit more? Do we need to listen closer to them?
Yes. Angela Pirelli is a consultant in this business, and she's been in radio for a long time. She spearheaded for the first time, went to Don Anthony, and who runs the morning convention for radio, and she went to him and said, we need to do a mental health panel. And I have so much love for Angela because, to your point, she was like, we need to at least start the conversation because, like the NFL with, the whole CTE stuff, they did not want to know about that for the longest time. And then eventually, like, okay, I guess we have to acknowledge that this is a thing. She felt the same way about mental health and the way that talent is treated by corporations, that it has an adverse effect on a person's life. And as well as the families and the extended families of people that have to interact with somebody that end up having severe mental health issues because of their environment. Because mental health, there's mental illness and there's mental unhealthiness, and it gets conflated a lot in our society. And so the idea that people confuse the two, Angela said, look, environmental stuff is huge in radio because it's a highly stressful industry, even if, in fact, everything's going right. If everything's going perfect, you still have a highly stressful job on the levels of air traffic controller. And my therapist did research and found out about that. And I was very happy that he did, because he was a military PTSD specialist. And so with that level of stress, it's already a high level of stress that most human beings don't ever experience at their jobs. That's if it's good. When radio does bad stuff, then the stress level is just beyond human tolerance. Like it's abusive when the stress level is beyond and beyond just the normal level that radio has. And she wanted to bring attention to it. So yes, she believed it just like you do, Billy, that, there needs to be better work in understanding how to treat your employees better than corporations do. The secrecy, the not caring, the building a bench and not caring about people's families and whatever, that has a massively adverse effect. And another reason why I'm pissed at the NAB, RAB, or whatever, because it's a huge talking point. It's a real thing. What happens in this country today with all this horrific stuff is due to environmental BS done by unthinking corporations and also a horrible government. And it's affecting human beings. This is not the way we should be. We shouldn't be living like this. Therapists will tell you we're not meant to live like this. We're in fight or flight mode all the time, and we're not on the Serengeti. There's not a tiger trying to kill us, yet we're at a state, a lot of us, where we feel like there's a tiger chasing us and we're going to lose our life. That's insane, since we are at the most safe part of being an American you could ever be. It's the safest time to be an American. The History Channel did research on that, yet people are like, yeah. And that is environmental, and it's a travesty. And radio is definitely playing its part in contributing to that negative effect.
Yeah. You did do not a mental health show, but you did what was the show that you started that did go national for Odyssey? Was it about suicide?
Yeah.
Or suicide prevention?
It's a show called I'm Listening, and I want to give credit where credit is due. Dave Richards, who is perhaps, one of the best program directors in the history of this friggin' business, and now he's the vice president for Odyssey. I think he was really inspired by my story, which was the story of my daughter, Sarah, who had an ex-boyfriend die by suicide. And, he worked with me every day as we tried to navigate this in our family. Like, what are we going to do? Because a lot of times suicide, survivor guilt is such a huge thing that then some of those survivors will die by suicide too. And I was so like, oh my God. And nobody really knew what to tell you. Therapists didn't really have a lot of information to help you with a person that was a suicide, basically a survivor of somebody who died by suicide. Mm-hmm. And so Dave was so inspired by this. And boy, you talk about, Dave just was a brilliant orchestrator, a guy that deserves so much credit for my success. I wouldn't be anything if not being able to have worked with him. And he's like, hey, BJ, I want to do this. I know how much this means to you. Would you like to host a show? I want to make a national show one day a year. We will do a national show on all of our stations, and we will just get celebrities, guests, whatever. And boy, oh boy, did everybody want to partake in it. Musicians and athletes, so many people wanted to speak out about it because they all were touched by this all at some point in their life, whether it be family members or themselves dealing with, trying to attempt suicide. And great people like Michael Phelps, you got people on that level, all sorts of musicians and Lizzo. And I'm just trying to think of a few that were a lot of rock people, and it was wonderful. It's now a gigantic, huge national thing, and Carson Daly is now the host. I guess being replaced by Carson Daly, that seems fair. I think he's got a little bit more play than I do. But we just started. We started it in Seattle, and I'm proud of it, Billy. It's one of the best things I have done in my career. It was wonderful to start a show, to start a conversation about mental health, especially for men. Men don't want to even talk about it because you appear weak if you talk about mental health in any way.
Yeah, I to address that, I do want to get back to the Carson Daly thing because there's a connection to Carson Daly and then to Wease, and you. I have had somebody come up to me recently who is a podcast listener, and I've talked about going to therapy and said, I'm going, and thank you for talking about it. But over the years, I had talked about being molested as a kid. And the number of letters I would get, like handwritten letters, sometimes even in the age of email and all, I would get these notes from people going, man, I was like, just thought I was. It's one of these things where I really believe that we make a mistake. And this was something that Wease did very well. I think we make a mistake that, if let's say a kid admits that to the parent, hey, so-and-so touched me, molested me, whatever. And the reaction is so big that you feel like as a kid, you can't process it, that you've caused this. And I made my mom cry. My dad's all pissed off now. And oh my God, they're going to kill him. And what did I do? And I remember when I told this story the other day, Sammy got left on a school bus And I'm producing the show, and I get a call. Hey, is Wease there? I go, no. Well, we have his son. He stayed on the school bus and didn't get off when he got to school, and he was asleep. So I call Wease. Brah, he'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And then all of a sudden I go, well, I think they're calling Doreen, because he knew what the reaction would be. But if we don't overreact to things, I think we can help navigate them, especially for young kids early on in life. But the going back to the Carson Daly thing, I think that's a Howard Lapidus fine. And Howard was a good friend. Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Howard's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Howard found so many great talent. Tom Green, Jimmy Kimmel, Adam Carolla. Yes. Oh my gosh. Howard Lapidus was responsible for so many. And also, one of his biggest mistakes is he would let me do comedy as comedy club. The only mistake that Howard ever made. But otherwise, Howard was really good at spotting talent.
That's funny. Well, BJ, I loved talking to you. I would love to have you on every once in a while if you've got time.
Yeah, I would love to, man. Especially if you're going to do any mental health stuff.
Yes.
I'm on fire for that. I think it's a big subject. And we can, Bill, you and I can help because men don't want to go or do it and think it's weak. And it is, to me, one of the best things that humanity has ever done is the behavioral sciences. I know there are bad therapists out there. I get it. It's like anything else. You're going to have to keep looking. There are really bad therapists out there, but behavioral science is tremendous. It is this, to me, it just shows humanity at its best, what they've done with behavioral science and learning how we tick. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it anytime you want.
All right. I'm going to stay in touch with you, Beach. Maybe we launch it as its own podcast. I don't know.
Hey, you know what? What am I doing? I got nothing going on. I mean,
Beach, we can do it just like this.
I got no problem with this.
All right. I'll reach out to you and let's see.
I love that. Billy, I'm all about it. I love that. I later this month, actually, there's a guy in Seattle that's also doing podcasts about mental health. And I'm like, sure, I'll come on your podcast. Again, because usually men don't talk about it. And so I'm a man that is known in my area, and they're like, you go to therapy? Yeah. And it's so good for other men to hear that because we suffer in silence. We really do. And there's a guy named Terrence Real, I'll just leave you with, who talks about the psychological patriarchy, which is different than the regular patriarchy. But basically, men have been given such a raw deal that both men and women in society have contributed to. We are capable of so much more, but we have just been put in this box that says, no, this is how you are. You can show anger, you can show lust. Those are the only emotions you get to have as a man. And we're led to believe it's just, it's wiring. We're like, I guess this is just how we're made. But in reality, that is so not true. And I love people like Terrence Real and other authors that have come out and said, hey, guess what? Everything you know about emotions, they're completely wrong. And mental health. And so, yes, Billy, let's do it, brother.
All right. I love it. BJ Shea, thank you for coming on. I such a fan and such a fan of the years.
Well, right back at you, Billy. I really, especially I love hearing some of the stuff you did early in your career. I don't think I knew that, and that's awesome. I love the late night stuff. And what are you doing at this hour? I love that stuff.
Yeah, who's up and why? All right, BJ, I'll talk to you soon then.
Thanks, brother.
All right, there he goes, BJ Shea, and we will close it out. Woo! I love when BJ gets all hot. That's my favorite. Very thoughtful, right? It's not like anger just to be angry. It's anger for a purpose. For Brother Wease, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. I'm Bill Moran. We'll see you tomorrow. I woke up in a hotel, didn't know what to do. I turned the TV on. There you are. Yeah, I just thank you very much. Buddy.
Oh, my pleasure. Love this stuff, man. Love it.
Okay, good. I would love to do something if I can talk to you.
Whatever you want to do, Billy. I'm at this point in my life, I've been very fortunate. I'm able to live, and whether or not the lawsuit goes in my favor doesn't matter. I'm good, and I now that I've had this much time off, I'm like, I don't think I ever want to work for a radio company again. I am so happy. My stress level is so, I've never lived like this for 40 years. To have a year of not being in the business, I'm realizing, this is how normal people live. Like, I'm able to handle I can handle so much in my life. Like if something comes up, it's not a catastrophe because I'm not at this ridiculous stress level that you have to be on the radio. And there's a lot of cool stuff that we can talk about. And I'll also turn you on to other people that that you can have as guests that are radio people that were on the panel with me. I can hook you up with Angela Pirelli. There are people trying to say things and do things to make a change, even though, like I said, the companies don't care. And so, that doesn't mean people aren't going to, but people are afraid. I'm going to use my position of not caring anymore. Like, I don't care because I don't have to answer to anybody. So I'm going to say the truth, that a lot of people are afraid they just can't say the truth, including Wease. I don't know how much he's getting paid, but it's like, Jesus, dude, it's unfortunate that you got to play ball and be nice for if you've only got what does he got left in his contract? Maybe 4 months.
I think he has until just a few more months. I don't think there's much at all.
I feel like, first off, iHeart, because I talked to him because they were afraid. A lot of people wanted to talk to him, and he said, "Would you talk to all these news agencies?" And I said, "Look, Wease, iHeart will find if they want to, they won't pay you. If they really believe that it's worth it, they won't pay you, and they'll make you chase them." And I personally think they probably wouldn't for the 4 months, but I had over 2 years left in my contract. And they were also restructuring it, so they had to save $70 million, and so it was just one of those things where it's like, you got to get rid of everybody. And they came to my contract